Gutfoxx here. Welcome to Top 10 Pitchers in MLB The Show 23. Right now, we're with the, I would say, best player in the universe. Chev, would you say yourself number one ever?
No, not even close. But I am your resident sweat. What's up, everybody?
I mean, what's your online record? It's insane.
Oh, right. Let me see. I mean, it's 195 and 16.
Absurd. And you're playing at legend difficulty, which is just a different level, especially now. Do you want to tell the people why now legend difficulty is so awful?
Yeah, because if you're a two-way player, you can come out of the bullpen essentially every single game with no stamina hit, and they just dropped for free at, I believe, 300,000 XP John Donaldson's card, and I think he's the nastiest. I think he's the nastiest two-way player for free in an XP from a storyline. Very specific. He's the best two-way storyline free card in history.
Yeah. He's very good. He's very good. And we will be talking about him amongst the other 10. So we got 10 spots to go. So we're gonna start with 10 and maybe an honorable mention. Do you have any honorable mentions before we get to the top 10 list?
My honorable mention's got to be Marcus Stroman. I don't have enough play time with him to give him into top 10 yet, to give like a little bit of a nod, but I do think he's on my radar. I think people write him off real quick because his velocity is a little bit low. But I think if you pitch with him like you're trying to pitch with Corbin Burns, he's going to get rocked. You got to pitch him a little bit differently.
So why? So how do you have to pitch them differently?
I think instead of working sinker cutter, just repeating that over and over again, you really got to use the splitter. You got to almost lead with that. You got to use the splitter as the go-to out pitch, not a sinker. Sinker is sort of like a fastball in this case, where it's just like your get me over pitch, but not your weapon.
Interesting, because like the reason why I thought Stroman was bad, why I never even tried him, is the splitter's only 5 mph off his sinker, and it's very similar. Like sinker, cutter, splitter are all the same mile per hour. Even the slurve is only 2 off the splitter. So like the reason why I thought he's trash would be the fact that there's no differentials in speed. But you're saying that's okay.
I actually used him, and the reason why I say this is my initial thought. I got to use him more, but when I used him in ranked, I got touched up a little bit for 3 runs in the first inning with him, and then I switched up the way I was pitching and got rid of the sinker cutter being like the 1-2 punch and started operating, kind of pitching backwards. Splitter first and then using the cutter and then sinker maybe a little bit here and there, and it worked out a lot better for me.
Huh, interesting. Because like, okay, what would you say? I think you'll see out of all my pitchers here, I think changeup's probably the most important pitch in the game on a card, and if you don't have a changeup, you better have something funky like my number 10 guy. We'll get to him in a second. And so I don't know, it's tough when the changeup's not that far off, because I feel like if you just slightly mistime it, you're still really close to hitting a perfect shot there when they're only 5 mph off.
Right. Yeah, I think what you said about the changeup's pretty true. I used to think that the changeup wasn't as important as people made it out to be, but for some reason, I guess I just had a 180 this year, and I've really noticed it when a card doesn't have a changeup. I really find myself always wanting to throw it and not having one on that card.
Yeah, I mean, it's what makes like cards like Nolan Ryan insanely good, because even though like he was a flamethrower IRL, the card excels because his changeup is psycho in this game.
That thing floats. It's very weird. It literally just goes up in the air and floats through. And you're waiting on that fastball, which is, it feels like it's the fastest fastball in the game.
Yeah,
I don't know.
And one thing about Stroman, I will say, he's 5'7". And do you believe the difference in like release points on guys that are small versus tall?
Oh yeah, especially if you lower your arm angle. Like him, he's not only is he short, he also lowers his arm angle. He doesn't really throw necessarily over the top, so he's kind of making himself a little bit shorter. That works that works in real baseball because you're throwing a lot of sinkers and pitches with horizontal movement. But in this game, it's so much easier to hit a guy who's smaller, and then on top of that, they're kind of lowering their arm. Like Randy's a demon for that reason. He's so big.
Yeah,
you can't. And Felix Bautista, that linebacker on the Orioles, that guy. No, I tell my chat all the time when I'm streaming, I'm like, he's coming in the game, I'm not touching him. I have no idea what he's throwing.
It's also like glitchy out of his hands. It's wild. That Bautista card, like I did like a spin the wheel of ranked, and his base card like literally was my ace in my bullpen because I couldn't get any other good relievers for a while. I like didn't fear bringing him in, even that base card, because he was so funky. Yeah, I absolutely agree about that card. All right.
He's nuts.
So let's get to our top 10s. You are the guest of honor. Everybody, hey, I'll link his Twitch and YouTube in the description. Definitely go sub there. I'll let you go first at number 10.
This might be a little polarizing, but I put, because I think people might have this guy a lot higher if they were giving their top 10. I have Chris Sale at number 10.
Okay. I actually kind of agree with you here.
I have him at number 10. I just think he's so nasty lefty, but he's got two big problems. Doesn't have a pitch to get a righty out, I think, because his slider's a little bit too slow. And I think he's like, I don't know why this could be because of the slider, but he is the biggest victim of second time around the lineup, he gets torched. I don't know why. I've just, from hitting him and from using him, it always feels that way.
All you have to do is not swing at his slider and he's trash. That's like
exactly
like that's as long as you don't, as long as you see, because it's like big and looping. It's not a hard slider. We'll talk about hard sliders coming up and everything, and some guys have some really nasty ones, specifically one guy. But like 80 miles per hour, it's so different, and it's pretty easy to see. And there's nothing like, Johnson's got a slow slurve, but his slider comes in faster, and there's the velocity differences. So yeah, I agree. Sale used to really be my nemesis before Randy Johnson entered this game, because I hate sidewinding lefties. I can't hit lefty. I don't know if it's because I'm a lefty IRL or what, but yeah, I felt like, and especially with the amount of switch hitters that are really good in this game, you got a lot more people coming at the right side of the plate than ever before.
Yeah, I think this was way too many switch hitters, and yeah, I don't know, man. I'd Sale always. Because everyone goes, oh, Chris Sale's dropping, and he's got that crazy arm angle, and I'm like, this guy would be S tier if he had just a fifth pitch, if he just had one more pitch, and I just feel like I'm really missing that with him, and the slider is so slow. But maybe if you rock with Chris Sale, like, to me in a top 10, like, that's just, it doesn't really matter the order. It's for fun to talk about this stuff, and I think there are some guys that are like definitely top 3. But if you're like killing him with Chris Sale, do your thing. You know what I mean? Like, pop off.
Yeah, that is true. I mean, there's not many, only like one other guy I know of that's like meta that has a release similar to him. So it's not as seen. The problem is it's now seen a lot because Randy Johnson's everywhere. But my number 10, and like, I don't know, maybe this is controversial, but especially in BR, I feel like he's the number one player you want to draft in BR. Matt Waldron, the knuckleballer. Just because, like, I went against I think I played against a guy like a BR flawless times 10 banner or something like that. I held him like one goddamn run through all 3 innings. I think he scored 1 run against me. And like, yeah, I'm all-star knuckleball. It's whatever, but it's so different. It's so wild. And I don't know. Have you faced this guy in Legend at all?
No, I've had people talking about him, saying that they're drafting him in BR because it's like a cheat code, and I haven't seen him. The last time I saw a knuckleballer was Mickey Janis.
It's a couple years, ain't it?
Yeah, I think he was. I don't know if Janis was in last year, and there was Ryan Fearbrand, that lefty who threw knuckleballs.
Yep.
But I haven't seen that Waldron guy yet. But it's different enough to get people out. And honestly, on All-Star, I would think it's even more effective because, like, on All-Star, PCIs are big, and there's a lot of good players down there. You in the BR depths of hell. So you basically just want to get weird. You got to get weird in BR to get outs.
Yeah, like you got to be throwing like fastballs, like it kind of weird spot because they'll expect fastballs where you're supposed to throw. Yeah, BR is against a good player in BR. You basically just kind of have to get lucky somewhat. And like, yeah, Waldron and his wildness. So like, even because he takes a common round too out of BR. So you're getting rid of your worst round, quote unquote, for one of the best pitchers in the game mode. So now they've taken 2-way players out of it. I feel like Waldron's almost a must draft there. But yeah, ranked, I don't know how much you can get over, because like a lot of times with these pitchers, the more people see them, the worse they're gonna do. And not a lot of people have seen Waldron yet, I feel like.
I haven't seen him at all. I hope someone brings him in rank, because that'd be really fun. That'd be fun to see how that goes.
Have you pitched with them yet?
No, I mean, maybe I should. Maybe I should do that for a video and give it a shot. I don't even know what his card looks like. I know he's a common. That's all I know about. Imagine he pops off in a month. He gets a monthly awards card.
Endgame 99. We're just like,
I think to fit to your point about it being different, I think it just has to be. It's the truth, because literally knuckleballs are so disgusting in this game. It's why we don't have like R.A. Dickey or Phil Necro anymore, or like Tim Wakefield or Louis Tiant. We don't have any of those guys anymore because they're just it's too crazy. It doesn't make sense in the game.
No, because I think I saw like there's like a pro streamer or something. He's like knuckleballs are nothing like that IRL, and like there's a reason they have their rights, right? But they never give them the cards. So it's funny they still have the ability to give them, but they don't because they understand how just absolutely crazy knuckleballs are. And I hope, like, what do you think? Like, should they change pitching going forward? Like, why don't we have Darvish's 15 pitches? Why don't we have more things in depth with like spin rate in pitching now?
I would like to do something a little bit different when pitching. First of all, I think in terms of gameplay, they need to alter sinkers in a lot of ways. They've just been too strong since MLB 20, and we're due for a new meta. They got to make sinkers more of a pronation break, like it's just kind of a fade off or a run, not like this weird thing where it's up and then down. It has an apex and a descent. Like it's a weird type of break that they do because then by comparison, two seams just are always going to be shitty sinkers. That's what it's always going to look like. It's always going to be that. But that aside, to make things more fun, like for Darvish, I think something that'd be really cool, and I think other old MLB games used to do this. I don't remember which ones, but you could maybe before a game, basically build your pitches. So like if a guy has like an arsenal of 7 to 8 pitches, you can kind of pick 5 to go into the game. So if you're not like a big fan of his slider, you could bring a curveball or a 4-seam fastball instead of a cutter or whatever. You can kind of mix it up just for those guys that have those kind of rotations, just to give people a little more agency over their pitchers and like have some fun with it. I don't think it's too ridiculous. It's not like we're giving guys knuckleballs or screwballs or stuff. They don't really have it. Everyone knows Darvish, like a lot of the Japanese pitchers too, they throw a lot more than just 5 pitches. So I think it'd be really fun to bring that into the game, but who knows? I don't know if that's a coding problem.
Yeah, I mean, it must be something with the restrictions right now. Maybe it's the number of buttons on the controller, but that doesn't mean you can't have like a modifier button to bring up more buttons, like left trigger or something. There's a lot of solutions to that, and I don't know, because you're right. Pitching hasn't changed in many years with this meta, and it's frustrating because like you see like sweepers and stuff. You see a lot of like pitches that just aren't represented in the game.
Yeah, there's a lot of weird pitches that. Well, I guess they're trying things with the outlier slider now, but there are guys like Joan Duran who just throw like, I mean, the outlier splitter was a new thing this year, and people just throwing outlier screwball. They're trying to get things a little bit different. I think they're realizing that. I mean, from our perspective, it's boring having to always have to use a sinker guy pretty much, and then it's boring from them from their perspective because they're sick of having to put a sinker on someone to make them good, but. Appealing at least. Like
Mariano Rivera. Like how absurd is that like his best pitch is like a sinker now and again because like you can't.
That's my go-to example. All the people are like, "Oh, this guy doesn't throw a cutter. Why would he get one?" I'm like, Mo throws 5 pitches in this game. Have you ever seen Mo throw 5? And they're nasty too. They're not throwaway pitches. Yeah. His sinker moves like crazy. So and like I'm cool with it. I don't if that means the best closer of all time can be used. I don't care if it's within the realm of possibility. Like don't make it like. Mo can throw lefty. You know what I'm saying? Like, It's got to be reasonable, and I'm cool. It's a video game at the end of the day, so people should have some fun with it. I think we're due for a new meta with pitches. Maybe make curveballs a little bit better. Spice it up. Keep things, interesting, because otherwise, guys like Tyler Glasnow or Tristan McKenzie, they're never going to be good in the game. Shane McClanahan, because they're nasty in real life, but they don't have a sinker or outlier. So I don't know what you're going to do.
Yeah. Ideally, they can make players that were effective with certain things, in real life that make them translate over to the game somehow. Like at most cutter, just I don't know. What do you think about like the shrinking PCI solution that we see on like sliders on the away part of batters?
Have we gotten confirmation on that that's intentional? I haven't asked about it to be honest.
Yeah. I don't know if it's intentional.
You don't know?
I don't.
I mean, like. Okay, so about that mechanic, I actually like it when it's a pitch out of the zone.
Yeah.
But when it's a slider, to me, just objectively speaking, you're going to give one pitch over another pitch that just effectively shrinks the batter's PCI. It's making one pitch way stronger just on paper than any other pitch. Like if I throw a slider middle away versus a fastball middle away, one of those pitches is going to cut your chance of getting a hit essentially in half or make it twice as hard, which doesn't really make much sense to me. Like I understand the idea of making a slider a little bit tougher to hit if it's like bouncing another batter's box, and you know what I mean. You can't pull a Javi Baez, but it doesn't. I don't know. It's a weird one to me. They look like a bug because that's never been in the game, and then they haven't really talked about it. I feel like they usually like to pitch those new features or talk about things in the game, and I don't know. It makes hitting certain pitches in this game really hard. I'll tell you that. I'm struggling on Legend. I look like I'm hitting with a grain of rice. sometimes with those PCIs. It's not easy.
Yeah, it's like literally like trying to pencil through the bullseye. I don't know what that, but you're right. It's strange because like I do think they actually want a little bit of mysteriousness to the game, because I don't know if you remember before the year, Sebrev mentioned something in the beta and he had to delete the tweet because we saw like pitch framing. Apparently, pitch framing. He like teased it, and they never actually ended up saying that pitch framing is in the game based off your catcher's like fielding or anything. But I feel like with some variable calls and some strikes are strikes, some strikes aren't, it might be in the game. They just never like quote unquote confirmed it. I think like they still want a little bit of the the mysteriousness of baseball to be there for us, and otherwise it's just a collection of numbers on the pin. I don't know. I really don't know. So maybe it is intentional, and you're right. I don't know because they haven't communicated with us. Oh, let's yeah, go on.
I was gonna say no. I mean, like you're absolutely right. Like there's a couple things like that are different this year to last that they said they haven't changed, but clearly they have. One of them being they've said to me that stamina was never altered, but starting pitchers get tired at 82 pitches now with 125 stamina. That's absolutely not like last year at all. And the other thing being, I was told that umpires haven't been changed at all. I mean, that's just not true. Like umpires this year, pitches on, you can have the same pitch 3 times in a row, and 2 of the times it's a strike, 1 it's a ball, and it happens all the time. I don't really care. It's just interesting. The umpires to me are just a little annoying, but they're not breaking the game. But it's weird things, ins and outs.
It is weird that like it's not called towards how strike zones are called IRL. If any part of the ball is over the plate is a strike, it's like in this game it's over 50%.
Yeah, they used to have stuff like that online too back in the day where it was variable strike zones. You should be able to just throw a ball in the middle of the zone and be a ball out of nowhere. It was infuriating. So I'm glad it's better than that now.
Yeah, because they also one thing they changed, they didn't tell us, they made the PCIs bigger. PCIs are now slightly bigger year over year. That's something that we've seen. So there are definitely a lot of changes that they didn't tell us. All right, who's your number 9?
Oh, let me pull up the old list here. Okay, so this might be a bit of a hot take, and maybe it's biased because of like the current meta, but I'm gonna go with Shohei Ohtani. I'm not a huge fan of him as a pitcher. The new monthly awards lightning card, because I really don't like the walks per 9. I just think it's a little too low, but it's hard to argue because I'm looking at this from my perspective and I'm trying to shed the little bit of the competitive side in me. Most people who play this game are going to have a real tough time with a slurve, an outlier fastball, cutter, sinker, splitter from a big guy like Shohei Ohtani on the mound, who's got a pretty interesting release point. And I think basically what I'm trying to say is, like, for most people, he's gonna do work. He might let up a few home runs because of his accuracy, but he's gonna do work, and he's really easy to get. The grind this time was so easy compared to the other player of the months, which I love. So just, I guess if I could factor in accessibility here, combined with, I guess it's hard to argue the fact you could pitch him every game, but that's another thing too. Like, he might not be the 9th best pitcher in the game, but he's absolutely someone you have to get because he's just too versatile.
Yeah, Shohei, I 100% agree. He's actually my number 9 too, just due to the accuracy issues is why he's a little bit lower. But I think I agree. I didn't necessarily factor in the accessibility. I factored in the fact that you can literally pitch him every single game if you want, and it's like a crazy like a piece for your team, just a Swiss Army knife there. So yeah, I'm right there with you, and I feel like Shohei is one of those guys where like you want to main the sinker, cutter, splitter. 7 miles per hour difference isn't a huge amount between the changeup and the sinker, but the cutter comes in like a changeup, and then like you can always go up in velocity with his outlier four seam. So he's overall nice. The thing is, like, the slurve I feel like they're not as good almost this year. I think I like the slider a little bit more on cards, especially hard sliders. And the slurve's a little bit, it's also hangs a lot. I feel like slurve has got the worst part about the curve, and then I feel like it hangs in the zone where you literally don't want it to, and it's, once it hangs, it's easy to just bang it out of the park. So that's, I think, Ohtani's biggest problem is going from from slider to slurve.
I agree with you. I don't know if there was a shadow nerf or something to slurs, but those things are not as sharp as they were when we had Kluber throwing them. No. They're not the same, man. They kind of hang. Like, if you don't throw it out of the zone or right where you want it to go, it's probably going to get hit or it's probably going to be a ball.
Yeah, it's there's slurves. they don't feel like they used to be. And who was that Yankees pitcher a few years ago? Like before sinkers were the matter. I feel like it's 19. He was like the nastiest thing. He had an insane slurve. I don't know who I'm thinking about. Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, so we agree on number 9. Interestingly enough, Shohei Ohtani. Who's your number 8?
Number 8, I have. This list keeps going away. I got Greg Maddux, and I know some people have him high, and because I see him a lot. Yeah, even at the higher ranks, anywhere I've seen him, people love him. And I'm going to talk about why I have him so low compared to what I think people have him, because I just think people get really caught up in that control, and it's great. It's very, very great, but I just don't think he's got enough hits per 9 or velocity to warrant the velocity issues, or not the velocity. He doesn't have enough hits per 9, or I guess basically he can't really hide his pitches well enough to warrant that velocity. So I think a really good player or someone who's locked in, you could throw the best pitch ever, it's going to get crushed no matter what.
Yeah.
And one thing I hold against him too is that he only has one pitch that you could throw up in the zone that will not get hit with an accuracy penalty, and that's a cutter, because now sinkers can't be thrown up in the zone anymore. There's no four-seam fastball on his card. So basically the only pitch that doesn't get a par increase when you're throwing high is the cutter. The sinker's still pretty small, but it gets a little weird up there. And I think it's touched up a little bit, but I will say he's got one of those sinkers though sometimes that I feel like comes in at different velocities. I'm like, I swear to God, I was early on this 2 seconds ago, and then next thing you know, I'm getting blown back. He's a little tricky with that, but ultimately when I've seen him used for me or for against me or other people using him, I think he always has his moments and then he gets touched up 4 or 5, 6 runs. But I think if you're locked in pitching, you're hitting all your spots and you're hitting all your pinpoints, he could actually be pretty fun to use, really fun to use.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I agree. I think this is a card there's not great pitchers on All-Stars. There's some good ones on All-Star, because good players will touch you up regardless, any difficulty. Yeah. Good players will touch you up. So, but I think he is one of the ones that gets better as the difficulty goes up. Just do that. I think Hall of Fame legend is definitely much more viable. I think his best pitch might be that circle change, because it looks like everything else just falls off the table, and it just 77 miles per hour is quite slow. It's not 72 out of Nolan, but it's an incredible repertoire of pitches for him, and you really have to think with him. That's why he's professor. He did not make my top 10 because I'm more focused on the lower levels. I figured I'd let you take care of the high level meta cards that are gonna get the best players out. So it is cool to see you say Greg Maddux makes your top 10, because he doesn't make mine. But I do enjoy using Maddux, because you always feel like you really have to work hard with him. You really have to think hard on sequencing and pitches and locations, and you can backdoor that cutter because it's so accurate. You can front door the sinker, and I actually don't mind the sinker up with Maddux as much because of the high end control.
Yeah, he could do it. This is actually funny you say that about how he gets better as you go up, because I said a couple days ago that he's the only pitcher in this game, because every pitcher, as you go lower, they're just as good as they are on Legend, on Hall, but it's just they're a little bit less effective just because it's easier to hit as you go lower. But Greg Maddux is one of the only guys in this game that's not great at all, really, I think, the lower you go. But he's so much better on Legend because of his ability to dot and I don't know, the velocity isn't as big of a problem. He's fun to use, and you know what? If you're killing it with him, do your thing.
Yeah, I agree. And if any pitcher works well for you, just use them over who we think's the best, because you're different than us, and your sequencing are going to be different. I actually went Hilton Smith, number 8 on my list. I think I have not used this card, but I wanted to talk to him about him with you. Have you used Hilton Smith yet?
I used him and I faced him.
Okay, so you're more knowledgeable about this than I am. I think the changeup at 74 off 99 looks kind of wicked. Am I wrong?
That is his best pitch, I think.
Okay.
I think it's his best pitch, but I think what's so weird about these cards, all these Jin Kim cards, they have really nice control on paper, but for some reason their bars are the size of Jupiter.
Really?
And yeah, it's very weird. And what hurts him a lot is a primary 12-6 curve, because first of all, the par on that's pretty big. It's also a useless pitch in this game for the most part. And then the four-seam fastball is pretty good. It's not outlier though. which hurts him a little bit. The changeup is his best pitch because if you tunnel that with the 12-6 curveball, I think a curveball's coming, but it's really that changeup. Or if they think it's a fastball or a sinker, it kind of fools them. But then you get down to the bottom two, and the sinker and the slider, man, good luck dotting those. I was having such a tough time pitching with them. But that could be just a me thing. I think he's going to be tough to use. And I've had some people come in my chat, too, people who've tried him on all difficulties, all walks of life in this game, and they all say the same thing. Hard to control with, or he got touched up, or both. But I don't know, man. I'm a sucker for the Jin Kim cards and for the storylines. I think the two-way is just too fun, but I wish if curveballs were better in this game, he would be nasty. I wish they were.
Yeah, because this is a card that I'd probably like. You'd main sinker change up almost, then you could go up to the four seam and slide or go horizontal on it. But I'll take your word for it. I guess that maybe I rated it a little too high at number 8, but yeah, I'm glad we talked about it. Who's number 7 for you?
Number 7, I had to lower him for this list because I had to get objective because he's my favorite pitcher to use in this game, and he has been for a few years. Yeah, I have Tarek Skubal from the Tigers.
Ooh, okay.
I have him in the 7 spot, and I was debating going even higher, but I had to reel myself in here. I think he's absolutely phenomenal, and I think a lot of people don't give him enough of a try. The K per 9 is a little low. The clutch is not great. But he has 99 control on the slider. The slider's par looks like a 4-seam fastball par. Anywhere you put it, you could throw it anywhere in the zone. And it's a really hard slider. And he's got insane control and pretty good break on the 4-seam and the sinker. So he could throw those anywhere. His changeup's got a nice velocity difference between any other pitch that he's got. And the 12-6 curveball is actually pretty decent with him because I like to throw the slider and sinker and fastball up and into people. And then once, twice, maybe 3 times a game, I'll drop a 12-6 in the dirt and they'll flail at it. And he's really easy to pitch with. His motion's easy. I don't know. I just really do well with this guy, and I think that slider, it's like Greg Maddux-esque. You could just throw it wherever you want, and it gets up to 93, sometimes 94. It's really wild.
I like this, and I think like guys like Tariq Skubal, and this is your list, so you should put him higher. But like because you don't see him a lot. Right? Like, I think I faced him only a couple times, and yeah, he gave me fits those couple times, but, like, yeah, I mean, a 95 sinker, it doesn't have outlier, but 95 sinkers will break a little bit more than outlier sinkers, so you see the value there, and then you're right about the circle change being, 12 miles per hour off that? Yeah, I like the choice, especially as a lefty. Do you feel like the general audience or your opponents that you face are worse at hitting lefties because we see them less?
Yeah, I think it's just exactly what you said. I think it's that, and I think because people see lefties less, lefty is the hardest thing to do in the game, hitting, I think, personally. So those two things, like bouncing off each other, working in tandem, I think it makes them really, really difficult. Like, I don't think there's anything worse in this game than hitting a lefty sinker up and in. It makes me want to vomit sometimes. So like that's the way I pitch a lot is I pitch how I would hate to hit. I pitch exactly like if I was pitching to myself and how I wouldn't want to hit, and I just do that, and it kind of works. All the nasty combos, slider up and in, sinker up and in, slider low and away, just ugh. But yeah, I'm telling y'all, man, everyone listen, try him out if you haven't. He's super fun to pitch with.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great tip for just pitching in general. Throw pitches that you wouldn't be able to hit. That's some big brain stuff. Number 7, I went with a little bit of Pirates fandom. I went Paul Skeens right there. Now, there's been a ton of mixed reviews I've seen online about it between, like, the Reddit, but people have told me, like, people are either, like, dominating with him or they're getting lit up and stuff. And I think a lot of people in this game, like, it's not like the game was 3 years ago. Outlier is not rare. Outlier is on basically half the cards that you're going to face out there. So you can't really rely on it. It's a really nice thing to have. But, like, you can't really, like, I'm just going to throw it by you. That's not, like, we now have monitors. We now at 120 frames, even though it's only, I think, 60. It's 60 ticks, but, that 120 frames, so you can see 62 frames per whatever. But like you can no longer blow it by people as well as you used to. But he's still got a nice circle change off of it. Will be like 14 miles per hour slower. A cutter at 93, so it's nice differential. A slider slurve. I wish the slider was a few miles per hour more, because then he'd have like the Randy Johnson slider slurve type of differentials. And right now, I think the slurve is just not a good pitch, and it's very disappointing because it used to be insanely good. It's not got great control. It hangs, so you're gonna really main that slider quite a bit. So slider, circle, cutter, fastball, and throw the slurve, that breaks downward a little bit more. But otherwise, I really like the Skeens card, and I don't know if it's just because I'm a homer or what, but I think he gets the tall guy boost if you're gonna run a pitcher captain.
Oh, I when I use Skeens, I debuted him with that Randy Johnson boost on. Whoop. It was nasty. Yeah. I like this card. I actually have him a little higher up my list. I use him too. I think one thing that people make a mistake in doing with Skeens, they do the same thing with Verlander this year, because Skeens, it just on paper is a better Justin Verlander. He does everything Verlander does, has a better pitch. He's got a slurve instead of a curveball, and he has all of his numbers are just higher. I think the mistake people make with Skeens and Verlander, and that's why they get touched up, is they're way too cutter forward. I think the slider is a way better pitch than the cutter on these cards, and maybe even in general this year. I think you need to use a lot more circle change. And I think if you use the cutter, it's almost like a changeup cutter. It's all backdoor, baby. Because you throw it inside anymore, it's going to get yanked, foul. It's going to get it's hard to get anyone to swing and miss on a cutter inside anymore. They either foul it off or they pull it for a home run because it bled over the middle. So I use cutter low and away sometimes, but it's fastball, slider, changeup, and and slurve in the dirt, because like you said, that thing gets tanked. I don't know why, but Skeens has been solid for me. I've used 4 games already with him, and to me, and he's gigantic. He's just like Verlander on steroids to me. I mean, they feel very similar.
That's great. Yeah, I think what you said about it, like whenever I throw a cutter inside, I'm just expecting them to fall it off. Like you don't really get that unless they are too far ahead of it, because it's like a changeup. But yeah, I just expect foul offs on cutters inside. It's really, you want to pitch it like a ball length or two off the plate, and then it'll just be pulled fall. So it's not really like a strikeout pitch. It's more of like, I got like 0 or 1 strikes on you. You're gonna foul this off, and I got to strike you out with like you said, the slider, circle change, that kind of stuff, or slurve in the dirt. So okay, I like that. I like that. I'm lower than you are in Skeens. I worry sometimes my pirate bias, so maybe I put him a little bit too low for you. All right, who's your number 6?
Okay, so we just went with I went with Scooble. So I got Justin Verlander. I have Verlander actually.
Okay,
and I have him just because people are a little bit weird with Verlander this year. They don't think he's as good. The numbers aren't as good as I thought they were going to be for 99 Justin Verlander, but I still think he's really good and underappreciated. And I'll give the same breakdown that I gave for Skeens. I think it's the same concept. People are way too cutter forward. They got a little cutter happy. Cutters haven't been as good in this game since 21, where they made the update to the PCIs. When you were able to now you're able to slam your PCI really far inside. When you started to be able to do that and foul off every cutter or pull it for a home run, it's changed the game with cutters. They're an off pitch now. They're not a main pitch unless you have an outlier on it. It's got to be 4-seam slider changeup, baby. That's what you got to work with. And the 12-6 curveball, the same thing I do with Scooble, sometimes in the dirt, but usually you just tunnel 4-seam slider change and then a cutter backdoor. Because that problem with Verlander and Skeens, they don't have anything that runs arm side. So getting a lefty out is going to be tough. You got to just work with that cutter as an off changeup, and that's it. But I think he's pretty effective, but like I said, I got Skeens up a little higher because I think Skeens is like a I think Verlander's a diet Skeens at this point.
I like hopefully IRL too for the future of our franchise.
He's got some skill,
Yeah. Hopefully we don't screw him up like we've done to so many pitchers before and just start having him throw sinkers and stuff like we did to Garrett Cole. I think Verlander's great. Verlander is up on my list a little bit from where you have it at 6. My number 6 though is Rube Foster right there, Australian for beer. I like, there is something funky about just a funky pitch, and I actually really like the screwball. And I talked about this with Gunsky, and Gunsky actually put, like, when me and him earlier this year did best relievers, he talked about Devin Williams being the best reliever in the game for him at the time. So this was like set 1 and whatnot. Devin Williams has obviously higher hits per 9 than Rube does, but an 83 mile per hour screwball that has outlier, it's kind of tough. Now, I don't think a bunch of his other pitches are that insanely good. They're nothing that you haven't seen before. But I think forkballs really fall off the table nicely. We've talked about the slurve enough. And then obviously having a sinker arm side run on it is kind of nice. But yeah, what do you think about Rube?
I was gonna add him as an honorable mention, and I've used him. And in the video, I used him two-weight him, and it was really fun. It was cool. It was cute. He had a great debut, 3 hits, and he pitched really well. But there was a couple things I noticed about him that were a little bit interesting. One thing is the screwball being outlier. I think actually this is just off rip. I could be wrong. My first initial theory. I think it could actually make it a little bit worse because it feels like it's rushing through the break of the screwball. One of the things the screwball does well is it goes up and it goes down and has that big drop. With the screwball being outlier, it almost feels like when you have sliders turned up and the pitch just kind of gets to the spot really quick. Like it doesn't look like it's breaking normally. That's how I kind of felt with it. Doesn't have outlier fastball, but still throws really hard. So that's kind of nice. Like you said, the slurve is not that great. And it's funny you mention it. I think his forkball was one of his better pitches when I used him, and the sinker. And a weird thing about forkballs this year too, that I've noticed, they almost actually move like palm balls. Like Senga's forkball is like a splitter. Splitter and forkballs are supposed to be almost synonymous. It's just a little bit of a grip difference, but they both break the same way. Forkballs in this game don't really break down. They just float. They float like, remember Sasaki's forkball? It kind of just moves like a slower four seam. It doesn't really go in. It doesn't have much drop to it. So it's more like a palm ball, but I actually think that's better because it looks like a four seam fastball and it could really fool the hell out of you. But the outlier screwball was really fun. His windup is kind of trippy, but I think the ultimately the low K per 9, so it's going to be a foul ball fest against him, and the novelty of the screwball not being able to last that long, I think that kind of had me lower. I lowered a little bit, but
yeah. No, I think like what I noticed when I was using him in a screwball is like the screwball was not good thrown down in the zone, but it was insanely effective thrown up. So
yeah, it's weird how it's like that. I agree.
Yeah, so it's almost like because like the break of the screwball, you can see it kind of like a 12-6 almost, but it's like it's got like weird, a little bit of arm side break, and it's up, and it's just something it's hard to like fathom it in your brain, the ball running a little arm side and screwball. So that's why I had him at 6. All right, who do you get at 5?
I have, this is gonna be another hot take probably. I have Nolan Ryan.
That's not a hot take. What's wrong with that?
I think people have him a lot higher. Maybe they have a little more higher. I think Nolan isn't as good this year for a few reasons. One, they added basically another penalty to pitchers with velocity this year. They're less accurate again just because they throw hard. And on top of that, pinpoint is now harder to literally just do. Like the mechanic itself is harder to do. So it's harder to replicate that. So that's that. And I think I don't know really why, but his sinker kind of looks a little bit fat this year. It's either out of the zone by a lot or it hangs. And I don't think it's as effective. I think people also have seen him a lot. But what you said earlier, which was his changeup's pretty nasty. I think that is one of his better pitches that he has. Like that's the one you need. And I don't know, man. They're really liberal with certain people, like Mo getting 5 pitches. Nolan Ryan did throw a slider a few times in his career. I think it'd be awesome to give him a slider. But again, I put him in the 5 spot because I think he's got the fastest fastball in the game. That's like a positive for him. It just rises. And I think that most players, even good players, are going to have a lot of trouble, including me. I struggle against him big time. It's just hard to hit the ball against him, man. He's very tricky. He's got a funky windup. He lulls you to sleep, and he's throwing 110.
Yeah, I couldn't disagree with you more on giving him a slider. I think he's powerful enough as he is. Like, can you imagine playing this guy and he had a slider too? And it was like a hard. No, dude, I think he's perfectly fine with his 4-pitch mix. Let's not go too wild. Maybe that's like a February card. Like the game. I just get excited about the next year one. Like no, I agree with everything you said. For some reason, like the circle change comes out and it looks like halfway. Like almost further than a lot of other pitchers' changeups. It looks further along like a fastball, and then it just puts on air brakes like it's an Acme baseball or something. So there is something about his release that is just so good, the way the fastball and circle change set up to each other, that I think I have him. I have him a little bit higher on my list than you, but I guess not significantly. I mean, we're in the starting 5 rotation right now. My number 5 is Verlander. We talked about him. I'll just talk. My number 4 is Nolan Ryan. So like we're pretty close to the same level on him, and I think if you sit, I guess I agree with your statement about maybe giving him more pitch, but if you just sit one of the pitches, just sit like fastball or whatever you see your opponent running the most out of there, you're gonna get one to hit eventually, but it's difficult. It's really difficult.
You can't let him get confidence. You let Nolan Ryan get confidence, and he's able to dot. It's over. He's gonna hit every spot. That's
true. That's a very valid point. His 12-6 is okay. I think like of the 12-6s, it's fine, and that's all I got to say about it too.
So. It's the best of the worst, being the 12-6 curveballs and knuckle curves. I think are tied for the worst curveballs in the game. But it's kind of fast and it almost tumbles. I don't know how to explain it. It's a weird way to explain it, but it like tumbles on you, and that makes it a little bit better than other ones.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I agree. Who's your number 4?
Number 4, I have Skeens. I got Skeens in the 4 spot, and
nice.
I like him. I think he's easy to pitch with, which is important because sometimes it's not easy to pitch with certain people's windups for pinpoint to replicate it. He's huge. Got all the pitches, and like I said, if you just go not too cutter forward, he's going to dominate. His stats are incredible, and I love that you could basically, if you just did that All-Star Week program, you could just pick 99 Skeens to take them for free, and all of a sudden you have in my opinion, a top 5 pitcher in the game on your team. Like I think he makes top 5 because he's game changing. I think he could if he pitches 5 games in a row for you, at least 4 out of the 5, he's gonna do a damn thing out there for you.
Yeah. I think you said it well, and I said my point on Skeens, so 100% agree, and I like that. I was worried, so I would probably move Skeens on my list after hearing you talk about him without a doubt. My number 3 is. They're just going to be set one, guys. I just wanted to shout out Bob Gibson, Pedro Martinez, Roki Sasaki. They're not really usable right now, but I wanted to kind of like just pour one out for my previously, I guess, slain or used players. I never actually got Pedro. I faced him a few times. Kind of okay. Not as dominant as you think a Pedro would be, but Roki was crazy. Bob was everywhere and would still be everywhere, and a lot of people starting rotations if we could use him. But yeah, so like, what do you think about the rotation of the sets this year?
I think it's really nice, but I've always been a little bit biased towards that. I've always swapped out my teams. I've never kept a God Squad the same way. I have a bias towards new players. I just like, it's like shiny new toy type mentality. I like to switch things up. I think it's healthy for the game. Whether people want to get into like the nitty gritty of like how long should the seasons and sets be, I'm down with that conversation. I don't know exactly how long it is, because to me, it's going to feel like it went on a little bit longer, but that's because I'm playing literally every single day and I have all the cards. And like, I think this might actually be the sweet spot. I think most people who are regular players, regardless of skill, are at least getting 2 out of the 3 set collections done. Which I think is what they kind of intended, right? They wanted everyone to get at least 2. You didn't get 2? That's just like from what I asked a lot of people, like how many. I actually ran a poll. How many of you got at least 2 of the set cards? And I think it was a good majority said that, because that's kind of important to me. Well, I don't want it to be like everyone's getting only 1.
I got 2 the first set. I got 2 of, not the second set though.
Second, okay, yeah. Which is interesting because set 1 was harder to do because TA was way harder. TA was all about mini seasons, grind, and all that.
Oh, totally. I think I kind of hit my limit as far as grinding offline. Like, my biggest problem with this year's game is because I like playing online. I like playing like events. I like playing like chill stuff like that. I've played ranked. I don't know. I think I'm. I'll take a look at my record right now. So I played 54 games of ranked, and it's just, I don't know. I just don't want to grind offline this late in the summer because I've already done it, and it's annoying to grind with players I don't really care about. And so I've kind of just like, you know what? I'm in chill mode. I've already accepted I'm not gonna be getting the TA set bosses, even though I really want that Jose Ramirez card because his cards are insane every year. It's just I don't know. I've just kind of hit my limit for the summer as far as the grinding offline.
That is a good point. If I had to give any piece of feedback, I think basically the way I would break it down is it feels like it's almost the way the grind is split in terms of getting cards. It feels like progress for TA is like at least 70-30. I think it's 70 offline, 30% online, and I think it needs to be at least. I think the majority should be offline because it's more accessible to the average player to be able to grind primarily offline. It doesn't require too much skill. Somewhere in like the 60, maybe even like 55 45 range, but maybe like I'll take 60 40, 60% offline, because it's not just the length of the grinds which gets annoying, it's the repetition, and it's always this. It's like the same things too. It's conquests, it's showdowns, it's the missions. Just spice it up a little bit. More Easter egg. Yeah, more like Easter egg programs, something like that. Not too long, but fun.
Yeah, I miss when Team Affinity, like, you could play either offline or online and get it. It's just like grinding out teams and stuff, and it wasn't as much specific players, if I recall, in previous years. So I wish, like, they just give us, all right, you just get PXP with these teams. Like, you know, obviously I realize that's not as, like, in-depth, and maybe people want more mission-specific stuff, but I hate mission-specific players because I don't want to, like, it's just like the ranked program. I don't want to use bad players on my team at all. I want to use my players that I want. And so, like, you know, kind of, I wish they'd do it in the future, kind of like just parallel XP. Like, you know, you could play Conquest, CPU, mini-season. How about, like, I wish it was, like, you say, like, a certain percentage. I wish it was just, like, 100% one way or 100% another way. I wish you could do it either way. And then, like, if you played online, you get a PXP multiplayer. And if you played offline against, like, rookie CPU, you could still get your stuff done, even though you're scoring, like, 100 runs a game. So I wish they'd allow both online and offline to grind the exact same amount instead of locking it behind specific missions for specific things.
That's one of the biggest complaints I've heard from people in my chat. I ask a lot of people, like, hey, you know, what is your biggest thing about the game? And they say, I get home from work and I want to play this game, and I feel like I'm forced to grind offline for a few hours. If I don't, I feel like I'm left behind, and by the time I'm done with that grind, I don't even want to play online anymore. Like, I'm so burnt out. And that's what I've heard, and I totally understand that too. And I have the luxury of being able to play as many hours as I want in the course of a day. And even I get a little burnt with that. So I can only imagine someone who comes home from work and has to do this stuff, and they get stuck behind that. That's kind of
not great. I think, like, the best solution to me, if they're going to keep this, is just allow all these players to be auctioned. Like, just if you put up, like, we had TA 3 years ago, I think it was 20 or 21 was last year, we could auction these TA cards. But if they allowed, like, if you finished Corbin Carroll first and you sold it, I mean, that's a huge W. If you could sell your grind rewards, and then I could just buy it because I prefer playing online and you know, market and stuff like that, then I think that's just best for everybody overall. And what do you think about that?
I don't have any feelings about that, to be honest. I mean, I remember the systems where everything used to be auctionable, and then it was just like a rat race to see who can get all the cards first.
Which is cool. World's first is awesome.
I like it. I don't think they do. I don't think they like the idea of that for the market reasons, but also because I don't think they like their content being speedrun. I think they want, and I also think, personally, I think they like their game offline more than online. I think they like the way it plays better. I don't think they like the way it looks online. There's a lot of bugs, freezes, the game doesn't run as well. And if they can see most of their players in playing the game offline where the game runs so much smoother, that's probably the way they want things to work out for them. But I'm down with that. I want people to be able to play the game as any way they want. Like, if you want to just grind mini seasons all day, do your thing. But if you want to play ranked seasons all day, that should count for something too. It shouldn't be just exclusive progress for ranked seasons only. Like, it's so narrow.
Yeah, I agree. Sorry to get off topic. Who's your number 3 guy on the? I mean, we were both kind of trying to figure out ideas and fixes for the game that we so desperately like. Who's your number 3?
Number 3 is probably my second favorite pitcher in Diamond Dynasty ever, Kershaw. And
wow.
Yeah, I got Kershaw number 3. I think his release is a little different this year. I think it's equally as funky. I think he kind of lulls you to sleep. His stats aren't going to blow your socks off, but he's got really solid control. I love his pitches. That phantom sinker that he has all the time. They always just give him a sinker on his best cards. I love it. I think his slider is really nice. I love a hard slider on a card. And I think he's proof that I think sliders are better than cutters. I would rather it on a slider on this card. His changeup is probably the pitch I throw the most. I tunnel the changeup with the sinker and the four seam, like middle in, middle away, and people are always rolling over on it. And one of my favorite pitches to throw is lefty inside slider every time, front door. gets people out in front. They're always sitting on the sinker. They're always selling out, and I get it. But Kershaw, I don't know. His pinpoint to me, I get it. It makes sense. And I think he's got the perfect mix and the perfect balance of like being weird with his motion and just having the right stuff.
Huh. Yeah, so I was using Kershaw for a little bit. I got, about 30 innings in with him, and I always felt like, oh man, like he wouldn't have like, he doesn't have the outlier, but he's got sinker, slider, circle are really good. And I guess I forgot how much slower his circle change is than the four-seam sinker. 12 miles per hour off, which is very nice. So like, I don't know. I always felt like, Kershaw shouldn't be as effective as he was, and then I ended up selling him to try out other cards, of course. But interesting that like Kershaw this much, because like I don't hear people talk about this Kersh whatsoever.
I've been on that train. I remember when they dropped the collection Kershaw, I believe. I think it might have been 2 years ago in 21, and people were all pissed because his stats weren't good. And I was like, it doesn't look great, but I'm gonna give him a shot. And he ended up dealing for me, and by the end of the year, he was my best pitcher. And it was just one of those things where I just figured it out with him, and he wasn't being used that often, and he still kind of isn't, unless his cards are like crazy. But again, this might be an example of, he's got a pretty good kit to him. Like his pitches make sense. He's got good build, but like I just know how to pitch with him really well. So that's why I got him in there. And it really works out. It's fun to pitch with his slider. I pitch with his slider, his number one pitch. That four-seam fastball, you don't really see it that often because it's gonna get lit up. But
interesting. I think like maybe in 21 people didn't like him because we saw him all year in 20 because he was in everybody's rotation. He was free early in the year, and that was the year. Was it 20 or 19 where the home runs per 9 actually came into effect, and his home runs per 9 were insane.
19, baby.
Yeah, it was just terrible, and so it's interesting. I like that because I guess I don't see many Kersh cards anymore. It's been long enough that he's out of the game. But all right, up to number 2. I'm guessing we both have the same number 2 and number 1. Do you want to do the honors on number 2? Because this is the big. Which one do you have 1 and which one do you have 2?
I got accused of recency bias for this one, but I got number 2 being Randy.
Wow, I think like I do too. And
I have him too.
Start. You can start.
Randy's nasty, and he still is going to be good. He'll always be good. But it's been Randy Johnson's simulator. We had him as a collection award last year at the start of the game, and then right when he was about to get phased out, pretty much because he had been seen for however many months, they dropped a perfect game Randy, which was like ultimate. It was like Ultron. I don't even know what that was. That card was ridiculous. And now we have this Randy they gave him to everybody essentially for free. He's a card you can get from collections, so it's pretty much out there for everybody. And his stats are still that much better than everybody else's. He's gross. He's disgusting. His splitter, it makes me vomit trying to catch up to his fastball, and then I get that splitter and I swing straight through it.
Yep.
But I do think that if there is any knock on him, and it's not really a knock, this happens to literally any pitcher, is that you've just seen so much of him that people have formulated a little bit of a game plan against Randy Johnson.
Yeah. I think if there's any like legend that I would gladly like be like SDS doesn't bring him back, I'm like, all right, I'm cool. Like I love Randy Johnson, the ball player in real life, but man, like I said, like I hate hitting lefty, can't do it. So basically every time I just basically swing with my eyes closed, lefty. Righties, you're right. It doesn't even matter. All-Star, Hall of Fame, especially Hall of Fame and legend. It's just I'm just guessing, and oftentimes I'm gonna guess wrong because like a lot of pitchers you can get their sequence down. Like I feel like even if I get the sequence down on Randy, I'm still having trouble. I guess on All-Star it's a little bit better, but yeah, Hall of Fame and above, and I'm basically like you said, swinging with a grain of rice out there against them.
It's not fun, man. I mean, you have to just accept the fact when you're facing Randy, you're gonna swing and miss, and you're gonna strike out a lot. You better just get that one pitch you're looking for and hit maybe a few home runs and win the game 3-2.
Yeah. That's literally the last time I played Randy in Hall of Fame is how I won was 3-2, and I think I scored 2 of those runs after he took them out in like the 7th or the 8th or something. But yeah, hope for some walks, I guess, and drive the pitch count up. So number 1 is I'm guessing John Donaldson for you too.
Yeah, he's got to be number 1. And people tell me I talked about this on stream and I tweeted something about it too. People are like, oh, you wouldn't say this if he wasn't able to be used every game, and I'm like, no. John Donaldson is the nastiest pitcher I've ever seen in Diamond Dynasty for a few reasons. It's just the problem is now just more frequent. I see him more now, so I'm more aware of it, but his pitch mix is insane. Outlier slider is literally something we've never seen before with 99 control and break on it. Outlier fastball, so he's got 1 and 2 outlier. A slurve, which is all right, honestly, probably his weakest pitch. A forkball that is the slowest forkball I've ever seen. I can't even believe what it freezes in midair. And then a sinker that moves about 10 inches in any direction. And what's wild is I thought that his windup was as easy to use and also maybe a little easy to read at first. No, I have no idea what he's throwing out of his hand. He like rushes his windup and it's kind of like, he just like flings it at you, kind of like Cole Hamels used to do it. And it's just, I don't know. I don't even know what he's throwing half the time. He's the slider, it feels unhittable. And when you have the PCI shrinkage, good luck, man. Good luck right now. He literally ruined ranked and BR for so many people. People were ducking online because they were afraid of the Baba Yaga, John Donaldson.
Yeah, I don't know what that word means, but yeah, it's a nightmare. Like, and he's the guy that a lot of us, and I really haven't played a lot of MLB The Show the last few days because of that glitch, and I have not pitched with him yet. And I saw this when they dropped it. And people that were in stream with me saw me freak out because, like you said, the velocity differences are insane. He's got basically, like I said, outlier, like you said, outlier slider, outlier fastball, but he's got the Randy slider slurve combo where one's so much, they come out looking similar and they are so different in velocity. And then a fork ball, and the slower the fork ball, slower the changeup, the better because it looks just like a fastball and you're swinging through it like a Looney Tune. And so, like, it's just crazy. And he gave it out to, like, this is one of those cards that, like, I'm okay if it was, like, super expensive, right? This seems like one of those cards that you want to be a chase card. But then they just gave it out to everyone. And so it's a lot like, how DeGrom took over. Was that 21? DeGrom
it was 21 when they gave him out for the TA. Yeah. He was in TA 2, I believe.
Yeah.
Like a second TA round.
And then Kluber was out to everybody, and then Kershaw the year before, and like they just take over the game. And especially with a two-way pitcher glitch, it's a lot like Kluber back in the day, where you saw him basically every game as like a reliever because we didn't have that starting pitcher nerf. Like if you just put him for a pitch, basically they lose like 3/4 of their stamina. So like Donaldson's like the first like throwback because of the glitch to that era that we all hated so much. So it's an interesting decision by SDS. I'll just say that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they're running around like chickens without their heads trying to figure out how to fix this. I think it's a complicated and complex coding issue, clearly. I thought that the solution that they placed where it was like, we'll just remove them from the BR draft pool took a little while. I thought that maybe a solution would have been just don't allow people to bring starters out of their bullpen for like a little bit. Yeah. But they just went and pulled them out of the draft. I don't know. I mean... I saw Coog said this in one of his videos recently. He goes, I'm not going to hold it against anybody if they bring him out the pen because it's at the end of the day, it's SDS's fault for being in the game and they're just trying to win. And that's something you can do to win. I kind of feel the same way about it, but I'll let you know, man, I'm getting hyped until I take John Donaldson deep. That's not possible. He's the best pitcher on any difficulty. And in some ways, I'm kind of glad that he's free and on a chase pack card because imagine this in the game right now, but only for people who can get chase pack cards. So like, you not only are you struggling against a top tier player, but then you're getting carved because you don't have this guy. Yeah. That would be even worse, I think. But yeah, I mean, I think it's hard to argue. You can go from Randy Johnson to this guy in a game, hypothetically.
Yeah, and then if you're running out of pitches, Shohei every game too. Even though he's not nearly as effective as this card. Yeah, and so he's number one. So even though, like, I don't know, the two lefties, it's funny because the game started as like a righty meta on the starting pitchers. Now it's the first few of them. We got a couple lefties right away. You have Kershaw and Skubal and Sale in your top. So it's like half your top 10 are lefties. I think that's... I
like lefties, yeah. I like lefties.
So like... maybe people do hit lefties a little bit worse here, huh? Maybe I should start investing into left-handers a little bit more. I'll try out that Skubal. I will try him out. But yeah, appreciate it. Any other final words there, Chev?
Yeah, if I run into you in BR or a rank, don't bring a Donaldson, please. That's it. That's all I got. I beg
Yeah,
you.
like it's true because like again, you can't hate the player, you got to hate the game makers because it's weird. Because like okay, one last thing on that, they fixed that glitch for bench players earlier this year. I wonder why they didn't fix it for starters too. It seems weird. Like
This has been something. This is how I thought about this. This has been in the game since day one with the World Baseball Classic, Shohei Ohtani, and there's two outcomes here, two realities that are both equally as concerning. I think one is they knew about this bug and didn't care to fix it till either they thought it wasn't maybe not care to fix it, but they didn't cite it as a priority in their list. Or the other reality is they've known about this bug and have tried to fix it since launch and haven't been able to. And that might actually be a little bit even more concerning than the first point. So I'm hoping it's the first one and they were just like, it's not that big of a deal.
yeah,
But because this could be a complex one, and I don't want to see them remove two-way because that's really, I think it's fun. I don't want to see that go. But you know, what are you gonna do? I mean, this is the best game. Even with all the bugs, I think this is the best gameplay we've had since 20. I've been really enjoying it, and I like where they're going with season 3. So hopefully they finish it strong.
yeah. What do you think about infield animations? I'm a little upset at how long some infield animations on base runners take. You know, on pitchers.
I don't know why sometimes you have guys who are charging a ground ball and they have goal to diamond fielding and there's a 99 speed runner running and they just catch it and they stop and then fully gather themselves and throw instead of like running and throwing. I don't know. Double plays feel slower. I don't know. The animations have always been questionable. I think that the infield animations on double plays drive me nuts. And then for some reason this year, outfielders don't know what they're doing around balls at the fence this year. They just let it hit off the wall and then off the top of their head every time. Like they don't put their gloves up.
And they removed the
I don't know what that's
ribbon.
about.
What was the deal with that? Why'd they remove the wall ribbon?
So we reached out about that and it's on offline. It's not online. Apparently it's not online intentionally. Again, I don't know why. And I don't know what the hell's going on, bro. So many times I got Mickey Mantle going to the wall and the ball hits off the wall and then ping pongs off his head and I just have to watch him look at it. It's confusing. It doesn't like ruin the game for me. It doesn't like make me lose a game. Maybe it could, but it's just like I'm just like scratching my head like what happened because it never really was a problem. They always kind of picked it up, but what are you gonna do?
Yeah, I agree. Hey, I appreciate it, everybody. Again, linked in the description. Go sub. Chev, that was a blast. I'm glad to hear your knowledge at the peak gamer level in MLB The Show. Appreciate you coming on.
Hey man, I appreciate the invite. This is fun. I look forward to maybe doing this again in the future. And yeah, I guess I like nerding out about this game, man. I enjoy it.
Yeah, it's enjoyable. Take it easy.
All right, you too, bro.